I'm John Strum, and this is Real Talk MS. It's August 10th, and we have a lot to talk about. And I thought the first thing we should talk about today is you. Well, not exactly you specifically, but as they say in the South, y'all. Some of you might remember that this past spring we conducted the first ever Real Talk MS listener survey. An awful lot of you participated, and I wanted to say thank you, and then take a moment to share some of the things that I learned about you. Not individually, but as a group. I should also remind you that no individual information from this survey will ever be shared or sold or anything evil like that. But here's who you collectively are. 72% of you are living with MS. 14% of you are MS caregivers. 8% of you are research scientists, and 5% of you are healthcare professionals. And I think that's a pretty healthy mix. And among those of you who are living with MS, 45% of you have been diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS, 29% of you are living with secondary progressive MS, and 20% of you have been diagnosed with primary progressive MS. I'm also happy to report that 81% of you are on a disease-modifying therapy, with Ocrevus and Copaxone leading the pack. So both ends of the DMT spectrum are well represented here. As you might expect in an audience for an MS podcast, 63% of you are female and 37% of you are male, which isn't far off from the ratio of women to men in the global MS population. Now, as far as age, we have a fairly even representation across the board. About 18% of you are between the ages of 25 and 34. 22% of you are between the ages of 35 and 44, and that's our largest age group. 17% of you are between the ages of 45 and 54. 18% are between the ages of 55 and 64. 9% of you fall between the ages of 18 and 24, and 5% of you are 75 or older. The great majority of you live in the United States. Canada and the UK are also very well represented, as are countries in the European Union. But I don't want to overlook mentioning our listeners in Brazil, China, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Nigeria, and many, many more countries. You've told me that the part of the podcast that you like most are the interviews with difference makers in the MS movement. You also really like the MS Advocacy updates that we share, and I'm personally grateful for that. So that's a sort of group snapshot of the Real Talk MS listener community, and I'll say again that I appreciate every one of you. Every week I try to share content that I hope you'll consider a good return on your investment of time and attention. Now, in the listener survey, you told me that you liked the interviews with difference makers and the advocacy updates, which is sort of perfect because today, my guest is a difference maker who makes a difference through her MS advocacy. Joining me to share her firsthand experiences as an MS activist is Jenna Green. But before we get to my conversation with Jenna Green, there are a few other things that you should know about. A research team at the University of Iowa has published the results of a National MS Society-funded 36-week controlled clinical trial that studied two of the most popular diets that people with MS tend to talk about in their social media posts and online forums. The Swank Diet, which is a low-saturated fat diet, and the Wahls Diet, which is a modified paleo diet. The study measured the effect of these diets on MS-related fatigue and quality of life, and both diets showed significant reductions in fatigue and improvements in quality of life. 87 people with relapsing remitting MS were recruited for this clinical trial, and 72 of those 87 completed at least 24 weeks of the 36-week study. Now, for the first 12 weeks of the study, all of the participants continued eating their normal diet. Then they were randomly assigned to either follow the Swank Diet or the Wahls Diet. At the end of the study, fatigue levels, quality of life, and physical function were measured. The study's outcomes showed that study participants on both diets reported a significant reduction in fatigue compared with the initial 12-week period of the study when they followed their normal diet. Both groups of participants, those on the Wahls Diet and those on the Swank Diet, showed improvement in quality of life, with participants in the Wahls Diet improving on both mental and physical scales, and participants in the Swank Diet showing more improvement on the physical scale than the mental scale. Walking endurance didn't improve for either group. Now, both of these diets share some similarities. They both recommend a high intake of fruits, vegetables, and unsaturated fats, while limiting the intake of highly processed foods. And while there's no evidence-based MS diet, most physicians recognize that a healthy diet is an important factor in our overall health. And many MS specialists recommend that people living with MS follow the same low-fat, high-fiber diet that's recommended by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Association for the general population. Now, there's a lot more research being done on how diet might impact MS. Given the association between the gut microbiome and the immune system, we can expect to see that research focus continue to grow. In the meantime, if you'd like to review the details of this study, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Cognitive dysfunction is not only a common MS symptom affecting more than half of the people living with MS, but it's also one of the most debilitating. It ranks as the number one reason that people living with MS stop working. Well, researchers in Lithuania followed 49 people with relapsing remitting MS over a 5-year period to determine the influence of the thickness of the retinal nerve fiber layer and oligoclonal bands on cognitive decline. Stay with me here and we'll define a few of those terms. The retinal nerve fiber layer, also referred to as RNFL, is a collection of nerves that connects the retina to the optic nerve. The thickness of the RNFL decreases with age, but it's also been shown to thin due to neurodegeneration and inflammation. And oligoclonal bands, or OCBs, are bands of antibodies that are seen when a patient's blood or cerebral spinal fluid is analyzed. Their presence is used to confirm a variety of neurological and blood diseases, especially multiple sclerosis. So now that we're clear on our definitions, let's look at what this small study was all about. At the beginning of the study, the 49 participants were given an MRI exam, a cognitive assessment, and along with other measures related to brain atrophy, the thickness of their retinal nerve fiber layer was measured using a type of imaging called optical coherence tomography, or OCT. These same measures were retaken and evaluated after 5 years, and the researchers observed several things. They noted a significant reduction in information processing speed and visual learning. In other words, all 49 study participants had experienced some cognitive decline. The researchers also observed a thinning of the retinal nerve fiber layer and the presence of these oligoclonal bands, which allowed them to identify this relationship between RNFL thinning, or atrophy, and the presence of OCBs to cognitive decline among the study participants. The researchers concluded that this relationship, this thinning of the retinal nerve fiber layer and the presence of OCBs, could be a potential biomarker of cognitive decline in MS. And we frequently talk about biomarkers on the podcast. Just as a reminder, a biomarker is a characteristic that can be objectively measured and evaluated as an indicator of normal or abnormal biological processes. For instance, if you go to your doctor because you're running a fever, your doctor might do a blood test. And if the results of the blood test indicate that your white cell count is high, your doctor will tell you that you have an infection. That high white cell count is a biomarker for infection. And this particular study suggests that RNFL atrophy and the presence of OCBs may be a biomarker for cognitive decline among people with MS. If you'd like to review the details of this study, you'll find a link in today's show notes. MS often causes spasticity, that painful muscle stiffening or those involuntary muscle spasms. And Botox has been shown to significantly reduce muscle stiffening. So the FDA has just approved expanding Botox so that it can be used as an approved treatment for adults with upper limb spasticity. Upper limb spasticity can present as a bent elbow, an arm pressed against the chest, or a curled-in hand with a clenched fist. This approval gives people living with MS and their physicians one more tool in their toolbox when it comes to managing spasticity. And if you'd like to review the new updated label information for Botox, spelling out its use for treating upper limb spasticity, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Canada has one of the highest rates of MS in the world. And for the past 13 years, A&W Canada has hosted Burgers to Beat MS, a fundraiser benefiting the MS Society of Canada. Well, this year's Burgers to Beat MS fundraiser takes place next week on August 19th, when A&W will donate $2 to the MS Society of Canada for every teen burger sold that day through its drive-thrus, takeout, or through the A&W app. And they'll also be donating $2 for every teen burger delivered by Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Skip the Dishes. And here's a pro tip. You don't have to wait until August 19th to participate. You can choose to make your donation right now at burgerstobeatms.ca or by adding a donation when you place your order through A&W's mobile app. Christine Sinclair is a 4-time Olympian and captain of the Canadian women's soccer team, and she'll be leading the Burgers to Beat MS campaign. Christine's mother is living with MS, and Christine has stepped up to lead this effort every year for the past 5 years. The goal of this year's Burgers to Beat MS campaign is $1.5 million, which will bring the total raised by A&W over the past 13 years to more than $17 million. So please make your donation today at burgerstobeatms.ca, and if you're one of our Canadian listeners, get ready to stop into an A&W for your teen burger next Thursday, August 19th. If you're living with MS and you happen to live in Canada, participating in Burgers to Beat MS is an easy way for you to support the Canadian MS community. If you happen to be living in the United States, one way for you to support the American MS community is through your advocacy. Our voices have power. And when we share our stories and ask for support for the legislative issues that impact people affected by MS, our state and federal legislators listen. In a moment, we'll meet someone who does that exceptionally well when we meet my guest, MS Activist Jenna Green. I read something online that described Jenna Green as an outspoken MS advocate, working to change public perception and public policy. I met Jenna at the beginning of March 2019 at the National MS Society's Public Policy Conference. That happened to be the last conference or public event that I attended before the COVID-19 pandemic asserted itself into our lives. And although it's been a year and a half since I met Jenna, she makes quite an impression. So I'm thrilled to have her join me today. Welcome to the podcast, Jenna.
Thank you, John. It is truly my honor.
Well, let's talk about the beginning of your MS journey. When did you receive your MS diagnosis?
Oh, gosh, it'll be 6 years in January. Actually, so about, I guess, 5.5 years ago, I think I had symptoms for quite a while before that, but I was also in a car accident. So I kind of blew off the nerve pain and the tingling and the numbness as related to that. But then I had a bout of optic neuritis, and despite some doctors telling me to go home and lay down, and I maybe just had vertigo, I learned real quickly to become my own best advocate, and I was privileged to get a reasonably quick diagnosis. It only took a few months until I was diagnosed with MS in January.
And how have you been doing lately? How was your 2020, and how are you weathering what I guess we can call the second act of the pandemic?
I mean, I guess as well as one possibly could. I have my good days and I have my bad days and I have my really bad days. But I hold on to a lot of hope, a lot of good memories of our advocacy times. That was my last event before the pandemic as well. The last time I really got to hug a lot of people. I really do miss hugs. But, I'm feeling hopeful. I'm trying to stay positive. I think living with MS has actually prepared me. It prepared me more for this type of a pandemic than I think it prepared the average healthy or able-bodied person.
I think I agree with you. When people talk about the pandemic, one of the first things they mention, especially at the beginning, when there were no vaccines, and boy, the numbers just kept going up, and up in the wrong direction. And what people were saying was, it's really the uncertainty of it all. And I think one thing that people who are living with MS learn to do is live with the uncertainty of something that you don't have much control over, and you really don't know what the next day can bring. So I think that kind of resilience perhaps already existed for a lot of people. I'm glad it seems to have existed for you, and you could draw on it during the last way too long, almost a year and a half now.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that is one of the gifts that MS has given me, is to learn to live with the unpredictability of it all.
I thought of inviting you onto the podcast after I saw a photo that you posted on Instagram. It might have been a picture of you testifying before a state legislative committee or talking about doing so. Am I remembering that photo right?
Yes, I did actually I've had the opportunity to testify a few times now, but most recently I had the opportunity to testify at the Massachusetts level. I'm a Massachusetts resident, virtually at the State House, I guess. Well, so really from my apartment, but virtually with some legislators of ours to discuss the step therapy bill that's proposed here in the state of Massachusetts. So that was just a few weeks ago here in July, which I'm very hopeful about, although they have not made any decisions yet going forward. And of course, in advocacy and politics, you learn patience. I guess that's how I'll put it. Not say there is the need to learn patience.
Yeah, I think you have to look at it as playing the long game. But
indeed,
we've seen on both the federal and state level, playing the long game tends to work in our favor. I think at the end of the day, regardless of someone's personal politics, something like healthcare seems to be pretty nonpartisan. Who doesn't want healthcare? And then it just becomes a matter of how to make it work and all the logistics around it. But let me ask you this. What's important to you about MS advocacy?
Oh, gosh. There are a lot of things that I feel that are very important about advocacy, specifically for MS. But the reason that I started in it, and one of the reasons that I keep going, is that I knew when I was first diagnosed, I was relatively young, 31 years old, had previously been very healthy overall. I've had experienced some medical bias and dismissiveness from my doctors, but I'm a white woman in the state of Massachusetts, where we have some of the best doctors and hospitals in the world. I also am privileged to have excellent healthcare, and my background is in social media marketing. So when I was diagnosed and my health insurance tried to put me through the step therapy process where they denied the treatment that my neurologist and I had decided upon and that he had recommended for me, and they wanted me to start on a older, less effective treatment statistically and then have that fail me, and then we could move forward. I just thought, no, this isn't going to work for me. And I have the privilege of understanding how to use social media, having a voice, having the support of my family and friends, knowing that I could speak about my diagnosis without being shunned by them. And of course, having the privilege of being self-employed, so not needing to worry about disclosing to my employer. So for me, I realized I need to speak up because there are nearly 1 million people in the US with MS. Some of them are certainly not in this position, and they can't advocate for themselves, and they can't advocate for the community. And there will come a day, I'm sure, where I can't advocate for myself or for the community. And so I believe now, as much as I can, I need to do that work in advance while I'm healthy and privileged enough to be able to do it, because it's going to help me in the long run. And I found it to be the most empowering way I could really gain back some sense of control and confidence after, this disease kind of turned my world upside down. Plus, I got to meet amazing people like you.
Well, I think I know at least part of the answer to my next question already. You've mentioned step therapy a couple times. I was going to ask you, as an MS activist, are there any specific issues that really are important to you?
Step therapy is a big one for me, certainly. I believe in the importance of being able to make your medical decisions with your medical team. And I don't think someone should have to, turn down opportunities because they're afraid that their insurance will change and they won't be allowed to stay on their MS medication. And we know, you talk about this on the podcast all the time with the doctors, and I'm certainly not one. But we know that if you find a disease-modifying therapy that's working well for you, it's recommended generally that you stay on that. So when I talk about step therapy, the ability to stay on your current medication if you change health insurance is a big part of that for me, especially here in our state of Massachusetts. Now, that's not a nationwide issue, and it's not an issue in some other states, but it's something that's very important to me locally. And then, of course, nationally, the rising cost of prescription drug prices is huge issue for me. Because again, what good is the research on all these disease-modifying therapies that we've been asking our legislators for funding on if no one can afford to take their medication?
I know you attended the MS Society's 2019 Public Policy Conference because I met you there. And I heard you mention that you also attended this past year's virtual Public Policy Conference. What was that experience like for you?
Well, they were both very fun. Of course, I personally enjoyed being in person with everyone the most because I'm a people person and I like to hug. But it was great to be able to do it virtually as well. I actually was surprised at how much I felt the community aspect still in a virtual platform. And I think the society and their team of people that work in the advocacy group put together such a great event in that way, where you could have small breakout sessions and be able to talk with people about the specific issues that you were encountering, or, how to use advocacy on your social media platforms or whatever. There were some different breakout sessions that you could choose to go to. And you really felt that sense of community despite us being all around the country, which I loved. And of course, the stories always inspire me. I always say that MS is 0 stars. I don't recommend it, but the people that I've met in this community, especially through advocacy, are just the most inspiring, amazing 5-star people, 5 stars.
I couldn't agree more. So following this last public policy conference, were you able to be part of any of the virtual meetings with congressional representatives?
I was, and we've had some really great meetings, and we've made some great progress nationwide. I think you were just talking about that actually on a podcast. I love those updated numbers. I like to hear when more and more legislators have signed on with our Dear Colleague letters. And I'm actually preparing now to do some August legislative meetings with my senator and a couple of representatives as a district activist leader here in Massachusetts.
And just so you know, I'm preparing to do the very same thing as a district activist leader in California. So I know the drill.
So fun. I have my orange shirt ready.
As do I. In addition to the federal work, you mentioned you also participate on the state level as well. So do you get to participate in State Action Day in Massachusetts?
I do. We actually, unfortunately, we had to cancel it last year because of the pandemic. But this year we were able to do a virtual event, which was wonderful. Again, I found it very empowering. I love connecting with my fellow advocates. And I think some of the feedback was really great because we got to have a lot of new advocates join us, people that may have not been able to get into the city before. Boston is not a accessible, friendly city from anywhere. Like Boston is an hour from Boston. There's so much traffic, right? So there's that factor. And of course, when you live with MS fatigue, taking an entire day to go and do this event, while for me personally worth all of the energy that it takes, that can wipe you out for a week, right? Like I think it wiped me out for a week the first time I did it. So we got a lot of great feedback about being able to do it virtually, and then virtually speaking with our legislators and teaming up with some new advocates for me really kind of reignited that spark of like, this is why I do this. I love hearing these stories. And that's the thing I think that people don't really understand about advocacy is that you can't get it wrong. You're not incorrect, because what you're doing is you're sharing your own personal experience. And that's why your voice matters so much. My experience is going to be different than everyone else's. We're all like individual snowflakes, as they say, right? So we can never have enough advocates. We can never have enough people telling their stories. Your voice, your opinion, your story, it really does matter. And I think virtually we were able to express that to a lot more people. And that for me was very, very encouraging.
Speaking of bringing new people into MS advocacy, someone, hopefully more than one, is going to be listening to this conversation that we're having, and they might be thinking about participating in MS advocacy. What would you say to that person?
That's a great question. I would say if you're thinking about speaking up and becoming an MS activist, please join us. Your voice is invaluable. Your story is critical. Your experience matters. And if you're concerned about how much energy and time it's going to take because, it's exhausting just to take a shower, I feel that. And I want to let you know that you don't actually have to fly to DC or have congressional meetings to be an effective MS activist. The Society's website, MS Society's website, and I'm sure John can link to this because I know that I'll mess up the URL, but their Society's website has a great section on advocacy where you can sign up for the emails or the text messages where you get information about what we are trying to change and policies that we are trying to improve and move forward as part of the MS Society. And they make it so simple for you. It's like a form that you can just text or tweet your senators or your representatives. And they even have email templates where you can include your own story. Obviously, if you have personal experience that is in relationship to that advocacy topic, or you can simply send the templated letter to show your support to your legislator. And they really made it like turnkey. You can make a difference as an MS advocate as easily as you can order a cheeseburger from down the street. So please do not hesitate to sign up and to join us, because your voice, your interaction, your text message from your bed, it makes a difference.
If I can add one more benefit to advocacy, I have not found any experience more empowering than advocating on your own behalf. So not only will you do good, you're going to feel great about your contribution to the effort. So I will join you and let people know that that link to the MS Society's website, specifically to the advocacy section, well, we're going to include that in today's show notes, so you don't even have to search for it. Just click on it and please visit. Jenna Green, thank you for all you do as an MS activist. Your voice makes a real difference. I hope we have an opportunity to be face-to-face soon, and thanks for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I will give you so many big hugs when we see each other next time. I'm holding out for it.
I am going to hold you to that promise. That's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk MS. Real Talk MS is powered by the National MS Society. And you can share this episode of the podcast by letting your friends or family members know that all they have to do is point their web browser at realtalkms.com/206. You'll find that link in today's show notes, so you can easily copy and paste it right into an email or text. If you haven't yet done so, please don't forget to visit the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Real Talk MS app for your iOS or Android smartphone or tablet. It's the easiest way for us to stay connected. The app will automatically download the latest episode of Real Talk MS. You'll be able to save your favorite episodes, and it's a great way for me to share bonus content with you. So I hope you'll take a moment and download the app today. I'm John Strum. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and make healthy choices.